Hello. Hi. Would you like to join us?
You know what? I'll just say this. The grocery store gonna get mad at me if I complain about the carts not being returned.
Wait, what?
Like if I come on the podcast and complain about something or talk about something,
Yeah.
am I supposed to talk about no people, places, or things while I'm here?
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope you're having a really good day so far. If you are new here, my name's Taylor. I come to you from Baltimore City, Maryland, and here on my YouTube channel I feature content that is generally focused on knitting and spinning, and it has been quite a minute since I've sat down to share with you all what I'm working on. If you subscribe to my channel, you might have seen my community post about the turn of events about a month ago. Brian was riding his bike. I think he took like a 30-mile ride and was 4 blocks from home, fell on his hip and had a spiral fracture of the intertrochanter, which is like your femur. And we've been addressing that. So I've been busy and I just haven't had time to sit down and record with you all, and he is doing very good. We spent some time over in shock trauma at the UMMC, which is a world-renowned hospital, I hear, and he was in good hands there, and so he's doing quite well, all things considered, but that's that. Right, I don't know what else to say, but anyway, I am currently wearing my Pendant pullover, which is a pattern I am going to release today. I have put this off for weeks and weeks and weeks, maybe months. I've kind of stopped keeping track, but I just didn't feel like I had the bandwidth to get it on Ravelry and put it out there into the world. But this pattern had been in testing for a while, what feels like a long time ago, and I'm finally posting it online for sale. So if you're interested in the pattern I am currently wearing, it is the Pendant pullover. I will leave a link to it in the description box below, and maybe if you listen to the end of this video, there could be a coupon code. I don't know, you'll have to wait and find out. But anyway, I really do love this sweater. It's a little warm for today. The weather has finally cooled down here in Maryland, and my office that I work in Monday through Friday as a staff accountant moved, and we now have really powerful air conditioning. So I'm super ready to start knitting again. Took a little bit of a, I wouldn't say a hiatus, but it had been a bit of a slog for me, and hello. Hi. Would you like to join us? Hi, this is Star Baby Moonchild, if you are not aware. Anyway, yeah, so now that I live in a very cool climate, 40 hours a week, I'm so eager to own double the cardigans I currently have in my wardrobe. It seems like there's just a few that I wear frequently. The one I wear most often, I just noticed I have a stitch marker. Can't remember, I think I was I still have stitch markers on the bottom of this, but this is my Kingston cardigan, which I love, love, love. It accidentally became a cat bed over the weekend, or over the past week. And you can hardly tell because of the gorgeous heatheredness of this Kingston yarn, which is a yarn base from Jill Draper, who I adore. I'm obsessed with the gorgeous tweedy nature of this very, very sturdy yarn. She does market this as a DK, but when I took my gauge, it measured up more comparably to a worsted weight yarn, in my opinion. So I did add that disclaimer to the pattern when I talked about it again and again and again in months past. But this is a sweater I'm afraid of wearing out, and I very much would like to add another to my wardrobe, but make it slightly different. You can see that the kind of feature of this one is a very simple cable that runs down the raglan shaping. And I personally love a raglan shaped cardigan. I feel like it does fit me well. This cardigan is structured very similarly to this pullover, with the exception that it has 2 stitches between the raglan increases. I'm sorry, 4 stitches, so that you can do the 2x2 cable. And then this one I think just has 2 stitches between, so it's just a standard sort of raglan. And because I want to make another cardigan very similar to this one, I'm going to tweak it. I tweak everything that I design from the last. So I published this, and then the bookkeeper cardigan, which is in the other room, which is stripes. I made the sleeves a slightly different shape. So these sleeves are very relaxed. It's a very wide upper arm compared to a lot of other sweaters sort of on the market. I did not add a ton of sleeve shaping, but there is shaping to give it a little bit of a taper, but it is relaxed throughout the upper arm and the forearm, which I feel like is very comfortable, especially for a cardigan that you might want to layer over top of other things like long sleeve shirts or even other knit items. With the bookkeeper, I tapered it even more. And then with this one, I wanted to give it a different, more dramatic sleeve, which I feel like when I'm sitting and my elbows are bent, it becomes a lot more of a bracelet length sleeve, which is just like shy of the actual wrist. If I were to stand up, you would see that it kind of hits right at the bottom wrist when I'm standing, and it has a row or 2, I think, of decreases before the twisted rib. So this sleeve has some shaping, not quite as much as either of the 2. And I want to create another cardigan that's similar to the bookkeeper in that it's relaxed and super casual, maybe even oversized. But I don't know what detailing to add into it to make it special. So if you have any ideas, let me know. But I do know exactly which yarn I'll be knitting with, and I have that to show you here in this huge stash that I pulled from my dresser. Most of my yarn fits into my dresser, and I pulled these skeins out for 3 special projects. The first is this sweater quantity here that you see of Brooklyn Tweeds. No. That is a flame. The first you see is this lovely yarn from Brooklyn Tweed. It is their shelter base, which is a worsted weight yarn. It's worsted weight, but it's very light. It's lighter even than Jill Draper's Kingston yarn. This yarn is very dense, which makes it really like sturdy. It is almost a workhorse yarn. It will hold up to nearly anything, even being a worsted, not worsted, even being a woolen prep. I think it's a bit of a worsted spin. It has a fair amount of twist to each of the 3 plies. This is a 2-ply yarn that is also a woolen prep yarn, but it has very little twist to the singles. And so it holds a lot of air. I'm sorry if you can hear that dog barking. It is probably never going to stop, so. This is a marled yarn, and so I don't want to add too much texture to the construction of this cardigan. I think I want it to be plain stockinette, maybe some twisted rib or ribbing here and there. I just don't know what to do. I was thinking even maybe lace might be nice. I think a marled yarn might translate well to lace. I'll have to knit a swatch to find out. This is something I would very much like to work on sooner than later because I need a break from fingering weight yarns. And once you know it, everything else in here is a fingering weight yarn, which is a lot of yarn. But I have two other projects in this basket. One is a project I've mentioned before. It's in the other room. I'm gonna go grab it. But it is with 3 skeins of this yarn from Patagonia. This is a organic merino 2-ply fingering weight yarn. This is a pattern I've only just started. I will put the name of it up on the screen here because I cannot recall exactly what it is called or who it is designed by, but I stumbled across it on Instagram and I immediately went over to Ravelry to download the pattern. It has gorgeous cables. It's really just like 2 types of cables throughout the majority of the entire shawl. It's a single color shawl for the most part with either 1 or 2 contrast colors for baubles. And this pattern, believe it or not, as intricate as it looks already, is very straightforward. You use the same cable every right side row for the narrow cable here, and then you use the same cable mirrored for the wider cable. So you really only have to know how to do one kind of cable both ways, right leaning and left leaning throughout. So even though it looks very complicated, honestly, it would be maybe a good beginner cable pattern, I might say. I could be jumping the gun there because I haven't gotten through the end of it, but I feel like by the time you're there, you're probably gold. So really enjoying this. I think it's going to be a good, not even challenging project, but like an interesting project to keep on the needles when the rest of my knitting might be a little bit more bland. I will say that the bubble cardigan I've been working on has been one of those sort of bland projects. About 1 out of 6 rows is not stockinette. So that part is all finished. I'm now on the rib. I have both sleeves done, all of my ends woven in. The bottom hem is knit, and I decided, because this is a very oversized cardigan and it's a bit loose fitting, I didn't want it to look like it's too large for me. For instance, okay, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that Stephen West, he's probably over 6 feet tall, and it makes sense that his bottom ribbing would be 3 to 6 inches or whatever it was he decided it should be. I went with 2.5 because I kind of want my smaller sized cardigan to have a proportional sort of bottom band and collar. I did knit the sleeves to have 6-inch cuffs so that I could fold them over, and then by them being folded over, they kind of match the bottom hem and eventually the collar. But if I want to make them a little longer, or if I want a more dramatic effect, I could unfold them. I will say when they're at their full length, they're a great length. They're not too long. They don't extend far beyond my hand. But when they're folded over, they hit just like where I like my sleeves to kind of sit, which is above the wrist. So very happy with how this turned out. When I blocked it, it did stretch the tiniest bit, but the majority of this project is knit with Stephen and Penelope's bicycle yarn, which is a little toothy, more toothy than any superwash yarn would be. It's not superwash, which would explain the tooth, but I used 2 colors of Brooklyn Tweed's Loft. Those are the woolen yarns here in this light kind of lime color, and then this brownish green. And then the orange is a Biche and Bouche 2-ply, I don't know what they call it. It's a jumper weight yarn. It's not the cashmere one, it's the basic 2-ply. And this base is a little lighter than the bicycle yarn, and then the loft yarn is a little heavier. So by combining bases, I did notice how they kind of felt a little different, but I don't feel like the difference is so noticeable that anyone's gonna be like, ew. You know what I mean? I think that it looks pretty fun and funky. I think that the black is really gonna anchor the entire garment and make it look a little less crazy. So I did last night pick up and knit the first row of 2x2 of the collar. So you can see that there. Sorry, I'm not holding this up well. I found it much easier than anticipated because there's sort of a texture to the knitting. It's not easy to see your stitches. But what I did, because I have these small circumference needles, I took the US 3 and I found this technique that I felt was so helpful. I'd never done this before, but basically when you pick up a knit along the collar, what I would do, because I found it so difficult, especially with these stoppers in my way, I would use my spare small circumference needle, pick up 4 stitches every color row, because there's 6 rows of each color, and I needed to pick up a ratio of 4 out of every 6. And so I picked up my stitches on my spare, slid them to the other end, and then I would basically work off of this needle. I probably twisted the little bars that I picked up because I noticed I wasn't knitting into the back loop like I would have if I were picking up and knitting with a single needle, but I don't think that makes any difference at all. No one would know. And it might even give a tighter look to the picked up row. I'm not so sure, but I don't think it makes any difference at all. If any, maybe a positive difference. So I'm very happy with that, and I'm going to continue working on this as much as possible until it's done, because I do intend to wear this to the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival, which you might be wondering if I'm going, given the fact that Brian has broke his femur. We are planning to go. I told him we don't have to, although I really, really want to meet Casey from the Young Folk Knits podcast, and I'm very much looking forward to that. I said it wouldn't matter if we didn't go. I don't mind at all, but he really, really wants to go, and he's making it sort of a goal to be sort of like a target for his healing process of walking again. I forgot to mention that he has a 16-inch rod in his femur, and this is not a cast situation. He is encouraged to put as much weight on his leg and do as much movement as possible, so we're all good. I think we're just gonna make the drive, stay with my friend Blair, who I'm always excited to see, and visit her family, and then we'll probably show up at the festival, maybe make it a couple hours, and then go get lunch and rest back at the home base. So it's gonna be a short trip, I think, but I'm still excited to attend. It's something we look forward to every year, if not just to drive through the Hudson Valley area on a lovely fall day. It's just nice to get out of the house, get out of Baltimore City, of course, and experience the calm, quiet nature of the Hudson Valley area. So that's the plan anyway. And I should be done with that project by then. And I'll be working away on this gorgeous shawl. And of course, I would love to have a little bit of a yarn weight release from fingering to this nice soft woolen spun yarn with a cardigan. And then beyond that, I have another long-term target in my future. I think if you follow me on Instagram, you already know what I'm talking about, but I have been watching, I'm always watching, Casey over at the Young Folk Knits. It's one of the few knitting podcasts I click on right away. It's just so fun to catch up with her, and she has an audio podcast too, which I now listen to when I'm at work, because I find it easier to kind of get a little bit more of a long form content in my day over there. But I digress. I was listening to her audio podcast. She was talking about knitting the Yell cardigan, which I've already made. I made that a couple years ago, and I think I'm making another now because it is just such a great design, and there are a few things I would like to do differently if I were to knit another one. There were some modifications I made to my Yell cardigan. One is that I did not incorporate any sleeve shaping, which gave it a little bit of a bell sleeve, which I very much like, but I think I knit it according to the instructions. I might have been off in my gauge slightly, so that could account for this issue I've had, but it is a drop sleeve design, and the sleeve sort of seam where you pick up and knit from here is a little bit tight around the upper arm, and I feel like I have to kind of pull it like below my elbow, but it really sits above the elbow. It just feels a little awkward, and I don't love that. I feel like it wears the best with like a really tight t-shirt or maybe a tank top underneath it, and I would like a cardigan that's a little bit more loose in the upper arms, and with that looseness I would like to incorporate the sleeve shaping that the original design features, and I would also like to fold over the collar and tack it down so that it sits a little bit more straight. It tends to roll open and you can see the wrong side of the color work, which is not my favorite part of. That's like my least favorite part of that particular cardigan pattern, is the fact that it rolls and it's not written into the instructions that you should fold it over and tack it down and make it more of a structured element to the design. So I have, for my main color of my new Yell, I have more than 3 skeins, but I just pulled out 3 skeins because that's what this pattern will call for, of the Biche and Bouche Petite Lamb's Wool in the color Gris Brun or Gray Brown. So I'm using the gray brown for the main color of the top half. I will insert a picture of the Yell cardigan here in case you don't know what I'm referring to. You can get an idea of what that is. And then I'm going to use this Jamieson and Smith 2-ply Shetland cone yarn that I've skeined up here. And this is going to be my contrast color. So it's going to be an inverse of both the original pattern and the version that I've already knit, which is a dark background with a light contrast. I'm going to do a light background with a dark contrast, which I think will be a nice variation for my wardrobe, but still a little moody because it's that rich dark color. And then for the contrast colors of the bottom panel and the sleeves, I have these here. So I'm going to pull out my other 2 projects to give you a clear picture of what we're working with. And I almost pulled out my entire collection of 2-ply Shetland wool, minus a few greens and yellows, because I do want to keep this color story on the warm auburn side. Basically what I did many months ago now, and you might already know if you're a loyal viewer of my channel here, is I took all of my least favorite colors that I'd picked up over time and I dyed them in a walnut, a black walnut dye bath. And so I took, I think it was a light blue and a white and a yellow, and I over dyed them, and I have all of these colors that are very similar but still different. Hello. Here, let me make some room for you. Put these back in here. So I have all of those really natural hues that I adore, and then I have several more that are from Jamieson and Smith, and I'm obsessed with those. I have a couple different browns, and I just have a lot of like remnants basically from my original Yell. In fact, this one for sure is incorporated into that. And I don't know if, I have enough for even a single motif, let alone to replicate it amongst the sleeves as much as to match the body. I might have to go with colors that are similar but not exactly the same when I replicate the same motifs along the cuffs. But I think I have enough colors that are similar but not quite the same to do that without it looking like they don't match. And if anything, it might just add another element of intricacy to the pattern. I tried to make sure that I had enough contrast because these colors are all a bit of a one note sort of thing. I pulled from my Ralma Phenol Garn supply. I actually have two different colors right here. I don't have the ball band for this in front of me, but it's like the oatmeal color. And then this one is a pink heather. It's, I guess it's color 4138. And they're very similar, but different enough to make the colorwork sections kind of, you know, not all the same. And then I have this lovely color. This is probably my favorite color in the world. It's not quite green, it's not quite gold. It is very much both at the same time, and I love that. This is color 1425. I picked both of these up at the Woolly Thistle on their website. Sometimes they do have sales, and I highly encourage you to subscribe to their newsletter so you're informed of when they give you a little discount, because I think like every yarn store on the internet, there's a bit of a high minimum for free shipping, which again is standard sort of across the industry, but I love a sale wherever I can get a sale. So I placed a sweater quantity order for this. I have 7 skeins of this. I think I can get away with only 6. So if I crack into the 7th skein for my yell, I might be fine. But, I don't know, I just love this color so much. But I also have, I think 4 skeins of this and another color, which surprisingly, I don't think I pulled out for this. It's very similar to this shade here, but it's a little bit more warm. And I think that might be why. I think I was trying to stick with the more orange toned reds and not go with anything too like of a blue red. This skein, I think I'm wondering if I should incorporate it. It's very much orange. This is the Biche and Bouche base that I was knitting into my bubble cardigan here. I think it might be a little too loud, and because of the black and the gray, I don't really want it to look Halloween-y or bright. I want it to be a little muted. But I don't know, sometimes you want to incorporate, I think I heard Ella mention this once before, or it could have been someone else, but they said you want to incorporate a color you're a little afraid of when you're doing color work, something that you're not sure of, that kind of keeps you on your toes. And I really don't hate it amongst all these other very muted tones. It might be just what this project needs. But like I said, it's also very similar to this, so these might pop against each other. This might be a good color combo to work maybe together even. Not so sure yet, but I'm going to toss it in with the rest of them so you can see kind of the vibe of what I'm going for here. It's all very gold tone greens, gold tone reds, gold tone browns, and then that cool contrast of the main color. So it's gonna be different. It was my stash more than anything that was inspiration for this project. So I'm just excited to work all of these into something. And then later on, once I have more room in my stash, I will imagine working some other colorwork pattern in the future. I don't know, the Yell, it's like a pattern I already own. You have to purchase almost, I think, all of Marie Wallen's patterns in the form of a book, and books can really become a little bit pricey. And so since I already own it, might as well make another. I love making multiples of sweater projects. So that's my long-term plan. I will keep you updated. I'm definitely not considering casting it on until this is fully finished. And those are my short-term cast-on plans. I do have another cast-on plan I might as well mention because I've been thinking about telling you all about it for the longest time. It's a pattern that is not even published yet. It will be coming in November, so that's my plan. And I'm gonna knit it. Like, there's no way I'm not knitting this cardigan. It is a pattern by a designer who dyes yarn. I forget the name off the top of my head, so I'm gonna put it on the screen here. But she posted this pattern for testing on Instagram. The minute I saw it, I knew I have to have it. I'm gonna put a pattern picture. I don't know the name of it yet. It probably doesn't have one, but do follow this designer on Instagram, because then you'll know when the pattern is out. And I already have farm yarn stashed away that I've been waiting to find the perfect pattern for. And I'm gonna go grab it really quick just to show you. As much as I love the moody nature of the dark colors she chose to knit her pattern, I have had this farm yarn in my stash forever, and it is from a local farm called Crooked Fence Farm. They're a stone's throw from here, and this yarn is a California red, I think. Is that it? Yes. Which is a very rustic wool, because they do have guard hairs. So there's these, like, it's this gorgeous cream color, but they have these kind of wild little strands of red throughout. So it has this just lovely, definitely an outer layer type of fiber. It's probably too scratchy, I will say scratchy, to wear against your neck or like as a hat around your forehead, unless you're not at all sensitive. Probably great for socks and gloves. I don't know if like feet are ever sensitive to wool, maybe not. But I've wanted to knit this into like an oversized cardigan forever. But I know too, it's a worsted prep yarn. It's a 2-ply DK weight, which I believe her pattern is in DK. I think I made sure to check that before deciding on this. But what I love the most about her cable cardigan, number one, is that amazing cable that you see along the front side, and I think the back as well. But most of the pattern is just a simple texture. There's not too many cables that add a lot of bulk to the fabric and make the garment rather heavy. And this yarn in itself is a bit heavy yarn. You can see how tightly it's twisted into the skein. It kind of shows you the density of the yarn. I will lift this one up for comparison. Now this yarn is double the weight of this yarn. So if I were to hold two together, you can see how much air is incorporated into this 100 grams compared to this, which means that the garment itself is going to be more compact, hold less air, and potentially be a bit heavier than the other. I've been sitting on this sweater quantity for 3 years now. I think I bought this at the beginning of the pandemic, or just before, I think. So a few years I've been sitting on either 7 to 10 skeins, which is more than enough to knit a cabled garment. And I'm gonna be so excited to have this to wear, and also just to free up the space in my dresser of yarn. I'm gonna be really excited to cast this on in November. So my short-term goals, it is now mid to late September. Obviously, I'm gonna finish this guy. I'm going to continue knitting that shawl and hopefully have my own cardigan ready for testing by the time I cast this on. And then the yellow cardigan is gonna be my background project. I've made one before. I know exactly the process. And for me, color work is a bit of a restful experience. I think at the time when I knit the yell, I struggled with not making mistakes. And I remember there were a few times where I would knit the entire row, which is a very long round, whatever. It's a steeked garment. But I would knit an entire round and realize that I fudged up the whole thing. So I would have to unknit it and then reknit it. And that took a fair amount of time. But I'm ready to do it again, and that's all my knitting. I have not been spinning, although I have a bunch of fiber already combed and ready to be spun to match this gorgeous skein here, which is like a little cloud of sunshine. This is probably the most perfect spin of my entire life because it has so much air. It is so squishy and so light. This is the, what is this? This is the Jacob. This is the Jacob white portion of fleece that I picked up over at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. I don't think I'm gonna buy a fleece at New York State Sheep and Wool unless I can find another little baby fleece like this one. I love a lamb's wool fleece, guys. I don't think I'll buy anything else ever again. And I probably shouldn't tell you because now I'm gonna compete with all of you fleece buyers out there. But I know that you're all good people and you're only gonna help me find a Lancewolf fleece. That's the energy I'm putting out here into the world, is just helping each other find the most gorgeous fleece and fiber. But I'm not sure I'm gonna buy any more wool until I start processing and spinning what I already have right now, which is quite a lot. So if anything, I'm gonna be at that wool barn to help some of you all find a gorgeous fleece, because I love, love, love to shop for fleeces. Anyway, eventually I will get around to that. It's kind of just collecting dust, which is sad. I should schedule some time this week to maybe get that done. But that's it for this week's episode of the Thread to Mend podcast. If you want to find me on social media, my name is Taylor E. Owen on Ravelry, Instagram, and Threads, which I'm trying to get back into. But that's it. I hope you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. If you made it this far into this week's episode of the Thread to Mend podcast, let me know in a comment below. I am offering all of you a code to save 10% on my brand new pattern, pullover pattern, the pendant pullover. I will put the code up on the screen here, and that will be that. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and that you take care.